And good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to see that we have such a big group of participants this morning. I think the general environment we are facing today is a good reason to acquire as much information about what's happening in the world around us. But let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Pekka Puotunen. I'm the CEO for Coface Nordics. I joined the company in mid-September this year, bringing 7 years of experience from trade credit insurance industry from the Nordics, from Finland, from Sweden, and from Norway, and currently living in Stockholm with a Finnish citizenship on my pocket, so a Nordic mix. And it's interesting if we look a little bit back towards the history, let's say just a narrow history of 3 years. We've witnessed extreme amounts of tail events during the last 3 years. In fact, back in 2019, the global economy was already seeing a signs of slowdown, not necessarily a recession, but a slowdown of volumes, activity, and so forth. And then we woke up into what I would call once in a lifetime, hopefully, environmental disaster, COVID, that caused us a lot of issues, not just in cause of casualties, but also in lockdowns, restrictions, basically causing us a tons of economic worries that then we, as a global active bunch of operators, meaning central banks and governments, did everything in our power to basically prevent the worst case happening. So effectively, fiscal and monetary policies were really dovish, and more or less we flooded the markets with liquidity. That obviously caused extreme actions on both ways, from volatility to trade. If we then go a bit further, obviously we saw a lot of issues in our supply chains. We had a lot of goods in the wrong place, and increasing demand from the consumers coming back from the lockdown mode. And then all of a sudden we woke up in Europe having a war. And now we're battling with decade high inflation and rising interest rates. So I'm not saying that the worries are not completely out of the blue. If we read the headlines of different news outlets today, it's really easy to be very, very gloomy, doomy, or even a little bit depressed. One could even say that, why fight? Let's shut down the lights and go home. But that's something that is really interesting. To us and to you and to everyone, it's extremely important to have as much information, the right information, to make sense about what is really happening out of all this noise. We know media is really has a tendency to be extremely negative or extremely positive, but the truth is somewhere in between. And I think for everybody navigating through these times, data is the key. High quality, up-to-date, real-time intelligence data, not generic, old, dusty reports from last financial years. It is really the key to really know where the economy is standing, where the country is standing, where your sector is standing, where you are standing in your sector, in your country. Also looking at your export or import partners. So I think the data as such is the key. And I'm really happy to see that Coface has made a lot of investments during the last 2-3 years deliberately towards the data, and that turning it also to something that not just we use, but we provide to our clients. So I think that is the key for everyone navigating forward. And I think that is something that Christiane will also touch in her presentation, because it's always good to see where we actually stand and then have a little comparison to what we actually read from the news headlines every day. But happy to see so many of us here, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Christiane, over to you.
Thank you, Pekka. Could I just say a word before you start, Christiane? Okay, yes, then the trouble is solved, because I can see somebody having their camera on, and if they do, they will be a YouTube star for Coface. So if you have your camera on, please take it off if you don't want to be your star. That's it. Sorry, Christiane.
Oh, come on. I think we really need a bit more YouTube stars, especially if they are not in the generation Z. So very welcome. If you want to join us with your picture, I am full in it. I will share now my screen. And Mona, can you please give me just short backup if you can see everything, and then
we can see it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, then. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Nice to see you all again, even if I do not see you directly, but I hope you can see me at least. We will have, a big program. We have only 45 minutes. I'm very sorry. I am German. This means I can sometimes quote up. And I know that you are very punctual in the Nordics and Scandinavia and Finland, and I try to really oblige by this. So I really hope I make it in time. The thing is, why do we have so many things to say? Well, there are so many risks right now. One, you see, for example, climate change. And I think the headline, "A cold chill on the global economy," is maybe a little bit of a joke if you are situated in Sweden, in Stockholm. I saw the pictures in the news here in Germany. That was a lot of snow. So I'm very glad that this is a digital presentation and that you can stay at home. But please, we are starting our ski season now here in Germany and Austria. So please send over the snow. We do not have it. So that would be a very nice gesture of you. Thank you. Let's start with the presentation. Well, first I want to show you what our current country risk map looks like. So country risks are the main thing that we do here at Economic Research at Coface. And the first big question is, of course, what are country risks? Because most people think, okay, it's something like sovereign risk, because that is what rating agencies like Moody's, Fitch, S&P are publishing. When you see there the number, and as you may be recognized, I'm the one in charge of Northern Europe. I would have the easiest job ever. Norway, AAA, and then I can go back and have a good night's sleep, or have a cup of tea or coffee and wait until we have to update it again. But no, this is not what we do. We are covering country risk in a term of what would be the probability of the default of an export credit in a time horizon of 6 months. So how sure are we that there are defaults or not? And still, the risk is very low, as you see, for the Nordics. But this is something that we figure out via, for example, a model. This model includes very different things. And I just want to briefly introduce you to that. It is a business environment. So how easy is it to do business in a country? Very easy in the Nordics. But if you're looking at, for example, Romania, still an EU country, but also a lot of corruption there. So business climate, macroeconomics, I think that's clear. Banking risk, also clear since Lehman Brothers, I think everybody knows it by heart. Political risk in terms of how high are probabilities of terrorist attacks, military interventions, big turmoils, or also demonstrations. Demonstrations in demonstration movements per se are not negative when it comes to political terms, but if you want to do trade, it brings up a lot of trouble. And then we have also, of course, payment experience, and we have environmental risks. Yeah, these are all the ones. And as you see, our country risk map, in comparison to what you maybe have seen before, got more red or more yellow compared to what you have seen. And I want to make you aware of the downgrade. So first of all, we have here a scale goes from A to E, and as A is a very wide range of different countries. So if you are looking at Europe, it would be almost everything would be the same color. We divided it in subgrades from A1 to A4. A1 is the very best grade, and there is one country who still has it. Only one in the world. And this one is Norway. So congratulations and greetings up to my colleagues in Oslo and all clients in Norway. This is really the only country where we say, okay, risk is really low. And yes, we still see that there are problems in Norway. It's not as easygoing as in other times, yes, but compared to the rest of the world, it's good. What we have downgraded, for example, and I'm very sorry for that because I really root for this country, Denmark to A2, to the rest of the Nordic countries, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, all in A2, by the way, Netherlands too. But as you see, compared to the rest of Europe, you are still doing very, very well. So Denmark and Switzerland were downgraded. They still, both countries still in a good shape, very good shape, but I mean, we see that inflation is coming up. It is more tight for more countries, for more people in the countries to consume, etc. So this is really a tough time. Malta also downgraded now to A3 because of the same reasons. Italy is now at B. B is really harsh when you think that normally we do not give in Europe or in Western Europe something that is below A, but A4 was already the grade that they had before the war even started. And then you have to think, okay, then there was the energy crisis. Then we have the high inflation. Then we have now increase of interest rates for a country that has above 130% public debt of GDP. This is really extreme. And then we have the election where the far right were voted for. So yes, we had already right-wing tendencies in Italy, for sure. But Giorgia Meloni with the Fratelli d'Italia is really something that's even another level. That's actually the party which, or is the successor party of Mussolini. So think about it. If we in Germany would do that, I think panic would break out in Europe. And this is not a reaction of panic, but this is a reaction to that Giorgia Meloni said to everybody, hey, we are not interested in the EU anymore. We want to actually leave. They have not acted like that. But of course, for us, it's already a red flag where we say, oh, we get more cautious on this country. Then we have 3 other downgrades. Cyprus and Egypt, both are very dependent on tourism, especially coming from Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. I think you get where I am going here. So this is not a good time for them. And Chile, A4, which is really good for a Latin country, but they are right now in the process of giving themselves a new constitution. You remember there was big movement coming up in 2019. Now they are actually rewriting the constitution. They had a first version. They gave it to the people and made a plebiscite on it. People said, no, it's a bit too left for us. So it was really a bit extreme socialist on socialist term. And now they are boiling it down, rewriting it. And then we hope that the next plebiscite will be positive. But until then, we have a bit of a uncertainty here, which is hinted here with the A4 rating, country risk assessment. Another reason for the downgrades are, of course, the different outlooks for the economy. And I think the easiest way to show it to you is via some kind of heat map. And that's what I showed you here. This heat map is built up in a logic like, okay, what do we expect for 2023 in GDP growth compared to what we have seen between 2015 and 2019? So the near history, but of course, pre-pandemic level. And we are just seeing the difference between the two in percentage points. And if it's negative, it gets blue. The bluer it gets, the more extreme is the difference. And on the other way, positive means green. And if you are from Norway, you will see that we have it here in different gray, which is not the case anymore. We were unfortunately not able to already update this, but I can tell you that right now we already updated our GDP forecast, which I will show you later on. So please pretend that this one here is this mint green. Of course, Norway is one of the big winners here from the situation, as mainly all the dark green ones here, the dark green ones, what do they have in common? They have in common that they are big commodity exporters. And if you are in this situation right now, hey, this is really the time for you. So out of the sun, Venezuela is having an uptick. We have Saudi Arabia who's doing well. Even countries like the Iran is doing quite positive compared to what we have seen. So this is a very good time for them. On the other hand, of course, Russia is in a deep recession. This is affecting also a lot here, Western Europe, Germany, Poland very dependent on the deliveries from Ukraine, and Germany, the main big industry nation in Western Europe, does not get any gas anymore from Russia due to the explosions of or at a Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2, and is now buying gas from everywhere. But this is helping us through this winter, but this doesn't help us for the next winter, because then gas storages will be low. And this is, of course, something that we are reflecting in overall GDP numbers. You see on the left-hand side here our outlook for the global GDP, which is still positive. Now, come on, we are talking about recessions, etc. But you saw there are a lot of emerging market countries who are now having the business of their lives. So this is, of course, not the total story for the global economy. The global economy is still positive in our outlook for 2023. But if you're looking at the growth dynamic, it is one of the lowest, except, of course, 2020, in the last years. 1.9% is really low. And if you're looking, where is it coming from? Advanced economies? No, of course not, because this is also a lot Europe. And sorry, Europe is not developing well. It is mainly coming from emerging economies. On the right-hand side, now, here are the real GDP outlook data for our Nordic countries, and of course, some big ones, some big export nations of yours in Europe. So you see here quite a difference. You see Norway doing very well, 2.4% for the next year. This is something that we do not see that often in Europe right now. Most of the time it's more like negative or around the zero line. And the main explanation is here that we have quite a good start in 2022, even over the summer. So what we saw in the summer is that there is still a lot going on. We thought that with the increasing prices, everything would boil down, no? Because people could not afford it anymore. But what we saw is we have a lot of savings from the pandemic, which was used. And then there is also a different change of behavior. These are not normal times. These are times when we already had 2 years of pandemic behind us. This means I, for myself, thought, what the hell? I have no idea what's coming up in the next year. Maybe we get a full-blown war in Europe with the NATO case. So party as long as you can. In my term, it means that I'm not doing again a small vacation at the beach in the Netherlands, which was actually the only thing that I could do in the last 2 years. No, I took my money and I went to Sweden. And believe me, from German perspective, Sweden is expensive. So this was really something, hey, I want to see something and I want to be with cool people. So I went for the Scandies, of course. And this is something that we see everywhere. So if you are remembering the summer, I don't know how it was with you, but with me, it was wedding, jubilee, big party, wedding, because everybody was using the things that they had done before or had to postpone and all pack them into the summer 2022. And this is something that we see really in the data, but we will come to that in a second. First, we want to talk a little bit about prices, of course. Prices means a lot here in our terms, energy prices. Energy prices is something that you see on the left-hand side. In green, the Brent oil price, which is the one of the North Sea, and this blue one is the natural gas price in the Dutch hub. So we see a lot of up and downs because it's financial market data, and financial markets are always driven by news. And that's something that you can really see very well here with natural gas prices. So we had already, as you see here, before the war, we also had big increases of energy prices. So that was not new. There were things like, oh, there could be some attack from the Russians to Ukraine. Oh, there is a lot of demand out of the sun from everywhere in the world. So prices shot up. Then the war happened. And then it went down a little bit because, as everybody, we cannot remain in alert pose for longer than a few weeks. At some point, we get adjusted to it. Otherwise, we would all get a heart attack and die. So it's like we are freaking out, but this freaking out is only for a limited time, because then we say, okay, I adapt to this stress situation. Otherwise, we could not survive. And that's something that you also see with the financial markets. They are coming back. Yeah, and this was, of course, the time when then Nord Stream 1 was not delivering any gas anymore. At the beginning, it was some problems with maintenance, then a turbine was not working, then another turbine was not working. Come on, I mean, if I want to be joked at, I can do that by myself. It was really embarrassing, to be honest, what the Russians were giving us here. But in the end, you saw nothing was delivered anymore, so prices shot up, and then they slowly went down. And what has happened? Well, at that moment, everybody needed gas, so everybody was really going into the market, buying everywhere. Prices shot up, but then storages were full. Yeah, and what about the LNG ships on the North Sea? They were shipping around like cruise ships to wait until the prices are adjusting a bit, which just happened. And that's why today the first LNG ship, at least in Germany, reached the country. So we see this is really driven a lot in ups and downs. For us, we expect that the gas will not be a big problem this winter. It depends, of course, on weather conditions. As I said, yes, you have a lot of snow, we not. And if you're looking at the temperatures, they're a bit above the normal. So we think that we will get through this winter well, but the problem is what then? And also problem is that, of course, consumers will not see directly these changes, because, I mean, think about your energy bill. They are not adapting that every day, dependent on the current level of the prices. And that's good, because otherwise we would have to pay this price here. But it's more an average. And of course, for companies, it's easier to increase prices than to decrease prices. Come on, who's doing that at the current situation when you do not know that if prices are shooting up next month? So this is something that you see here in the inflation rates. The ones here are the current inflation rates that you know from the news, mostly, I think, for October. Then we have already here the average of the last year, which shows that already prices were increasing in the last year, and the average of the last 10 years. So normally we are used to very, very low inflation rates that are below the 2% target that many of our countries' central banks have. But we had already some increase here. You see it here, very nice with Norway, and now the current level. I'm not very sure how high the situation is in comparison to other years for each of your countries. So mostly it is the highest level since the 70s. But if you're looking, for example, for Germany and the Netherlands, this inflation rate is the highest since the early 1950s. And please remember that in the case, for example, of Germany, we were still in the after World War II times where we were working really with rationing of goods. Or to say differently, I cannot see you, but I'm quite sure that many or most of you were not alive at that moment. So nobody of us has really some feeling how to react to this inflation. Nobody knows how to deal with it. Should I buy now because it will get just more expensive in the future, or should I save so that I can still afford consumption in the future? Huh? You see, not an easy answer here to give. One main force that is, of course, reacting to this very high inflation are central banks. And the reason for that is not as simple as you think. So we are always saying they are fighting inflation. And if you are looking at the numbers right now, normally I would say in the audience, hands up, was really thinking that that they are fighting the current inflation. I give that now to you as a rhetoric question. So no, nobody is fighting the current inflation. They cannot. I mean, how? It's driven by energy prices, and as far as I know, central bank is not buying in the energy market to have an effect on the energy prices. No, what they are doing is to keep inflation expectations at a certain level, because when you do a bigger investment, you are investing over a time horizon of at least 3 to 5 years, maybe longer, and then you have to you need an expectation where inflation is in that time. And this is something that central banks want to maneuver here. They want to target it. They want to bring it to the 2% target so that people have a better reaction time, and this will then bring down real actual inflation too. So this is why the central banks are reacting right now quite fast. You see it here. We have the very nice example of the US, because they have such a long time series and time horizon. And you see here, these are the names of the central bank governors at the moment of the Fed. So the last one was really Yellen and Jerome Powell from 2015 to 18. It was only so 25 bits of hikes, one per month, so very relaxed. You see, Greenspan was somebody in the 1990s who really went on it, but nobody can really beat Jerome Powell right now. He's really shooting up inflation, and if you look at the level of the interest rates here, of course in basis points, then you see this is already the second highest level in the last 30 to 40 years. By the way, Jerome Powell is not on his own. Here are, this is, I think, a very nice chart to show central bank increases. And it's just the number. It's not the level of the interest rates, but just the number. So how many central banks are increasing versus decreasing per month. And of course, it's a bit up and down because not every central bank has a meeting every month. It's most of the time only 8 meetings per year. You know, Christmas break, summer break. So that's the reason. And if you're looking here at the numbers, you see that interest rates hikes are actually one of the highest in the last years. The numbers, almost every advanced economy is increasing, and here you will see the different countries that we are looking at. The only central bank of the advanced economies who's not increasing is Japan. And Japan, the reason is they are right now at an inflation rate of 3.5%. 3.5% is the highest inflation level in, I don't know, eternity. I personally have never seen real inflation in Japan. And of course, everybody is celebrating it in Japan because they are not used to it, but they have technically an inflation target. So they will do nothing to change this expectation for the future. They really want to have this inflation. So of course, they're doing nothing. The rest is, except for 2 to 3 ones who are emerging market countries. And these 3 possible candidates would be Russia, China, Turkey. Why? Because they do not care about inflation as much as about growth. Russia needs really growth to keep on. Yeah, we know from President Erdogan that he is doing practically the central bank policies by himself, by some weird personal thoughts on inflation. He's not giving really attention to what the people maybe want, but apparently people in Turkey are still voting for him, so they seem fine with it. Yeah, in China, nobody asked the people, of course, so they want growth no matter what, and this is why they do not track that much inflation here. One main reason also why we are looking at central banks is, of course, the difference of central banks between each other and the effect to the currencies. So on the left-hand side, you see the Swedish krona, Norwegian krona, and the euro versus the US dollar. So how many Swedish krona do you need for $1 US, etc.? Why not the Danish crown? Because the Danish crown is in a pact with the euro, so it's basically the same direction. And what you see is that compared to the US dollar, we have really depreciated our currency. In normal times, this would not be a big problem. Depreciation could be really good to stabilize your economy. What does depreciation mean versus the US dollar? It means that your imports get more expensive and your exports more cheaper. Means technically more people should import your goods and services, and you should less import. So if you know how an economy is working, exports are good for growth, imports are not so good for growth. So if you have higher exports than imports, really good for the growth. That's the theory. But what if you cannot change your behavior? Because it would mean you have to change your behavior regarding the price development. But if you are already on the low part, you cannot change your imports anymore. Yeah, what does then depreciation means? It means your imports just get more expensive. That's it. And this means that you are importing inflation right now. And with you, I mean not specifically you, but I mean everybody of us. So in the Eurozone, we are all one community. So we all are importing right now inflation from others, and probably also exporting a bit of it. And that's why right now we are in some kind of race towards the top regarding central bank's reaction. You see here the key interest rates of the Fed, the Norges Bank, ECB, and the Riksbank. The Danish central bank has, of course, to copy the steps of the ECB, more or less. The first mover here was, by the way, Norway, because here prices increased the fastest, and also the growth was way more better than in the others. But if you're looking at the level of interest rates, US is in the lead for sure. And the question is, how should we manage here to get to the top? And also remember, if you are doing central bank policy for one country, perfect. But if you have something like the Eurozone with 19 different countries, that's a bit tricky, because higher interest rates for some countries like Finland are not a big issue. But if you're looking at the level of debt in Greece or in Cyprus or in Italy, then this level of interest rates is really a problem for their budget. Another one who is doing a lot right now to keep prices down or fight inflation, or well, at least the results of this inflation, are governments. And I'm sorry, we do not have this overview for the Nordics. We have done that at Coface only for the biggest economies in Europe, means in this case Germany, France, Spain, Italy, and UK. And we wanted to compare that, the support measures that were announced now and slowly decided, compared to what we have seen during the pandemic. So this one here is the pandemic situation, and this is always measures compared to the GDP. And as you see here, furlough means the support that the employees get if they are only working on short term, but get full money. That's furlough. Are more or less the same, except for the UK. Then we have direct support via aid, help, like subsidies. These are not loans. They do not have to get or be paid back, but you get them directly. And then the guaranteed loans. And as you see here in this part, there are not big changes, but the guaranteed loans are the big thing. And now compare that to what we have here. We have also guaranteed loans, but not that much. And it seems, especially in Germany, very much household and business support. This one here is a 200 billion euro program called by our Chancellor Doppelwumms. So Wumms is like woof, and the Doppelwumms is woof, woof. Now, there must be something big coming up. The important thing here is, however, that the support here is something that is announced but not put into reality yet. It depends, of course, a lot on gas prices because it includes a gas price break, but also the ability that companies are asking for this help. And that's really interesting because we had something similar here already. Our chancellor called it at that time a bazooka. So there was even more support. It would have been here if everything would have been used. But as you already hear it from what I'm saying, they announced it, but it was never used. So in the end, only this smaller part was really put into practice. And we expect that this will be the same here. So a lot of psychological support here. It is easier if you know that the government stands behind you, help you if you fall. But this gives you a bit of certainty to keep on. And if it's really working very well, then you do not need the help in the end at all. And that's what was going on right now here in Germany, in France, Italy, and Spain, UK. The numbers are lower. They have not announced such a big number, also because their budget is definitely lower than the one of Germany. We have saved a lot in the past, so that we have right now more ability to maneuver here. Let's come back to the Nordics. And here another very interesting fact is that something that Pekka already said to you at the beginning, news are tending to be very bad or very good, but right now more bad because everybody is expecting something bad. So the news have to fulfill this expectation. And this is driving the sentiment really down. But in the end, real numbers are better than you would have expected. Let's have a look first on the leading indicators here in manufacturing. That's the Purchasing Manager Index. It's a survey around purchasing managers here in this term for Sweden, Norway, and Denmark from the DNB and Swedbank. And because it's going up and down, it's very volatile for Scandinavian countries because the economy is smaller. And if some companies are saying something better already, this index is going up a lot. So I made here a moving 3-month average. I think what is still clear, if you think that 50 is the neutral line, everything below it means negative development, and the farther you are below the 50 line, the stronger is this development. Denmark is not doing well. So Denmark has some mood problems here, is still a tiny bit above the big first lockdown sentiment, but yeah. Sweden is a little bit better, so sentiment is still better, and Norway, I mean, come on, you do not have to complain, no? Okay, but this is what the industry is saying. Let's face the consumers, and of course the consumers, and I made here the comparison to some other countries, really negative. The one, for example, for the Netherlands, I mean, they have 14% inflation. The level of the Netherlands is one of the lowest. It has a little bit found its bottom, but it is one of the lowest since the start of this whole survey, and it started in April 1986. And to give you some size, this is the same year as I was born. So they are most pessimistic in all my lifetime. So this is really something that we see. So there's a lot of pessimism. Of course, prices go up. You cannot afford it as much as you were used to. But if we are looking at the real numbers, and here I compare again our countries, again a little bit with Germany and the Netherlands, and I put here the pre-pandemic level as 100. Where are we right now? Did we went out of this pandemic hole and recovered? Remember, Denmark was really in a bad shape if you ask for the mood. But what's going on in real terms? In real terms, come on, nothing to complain. If you're wondering why Norway is here, because it's only mainland industrial production, so oil and shipbuilding are excluded here. I could not find another one, but you can expect this one here is at least stable, and now add a big chunk to it, and then you have Norway. Even Sweden, yeah, a bit of up and down, but there is some very, yeah, it could be higher, it could be steeper, but yes, positively developing here. Finland, roughly the same as Sweden. So yes, industrial production is keeping on, no matter what you are telling everybody, it is not that bad. And even in the retail sales sector, now we're coming to consumption. Yes, of course, it came down in the last parts, but if you're looking at Norway, it's stable. I mean, you have already, it seems, done a lot of consumption in the 2020s and 2021. But if you are comparing it to other countries more in Western Europe than in Northern Europe, the level is definitely better. And this is, I think, a very good explanation why we say, okay, Western Europe more A3 material, while Nordics, with the exception of Norway, A2 material. There is a difference here. One last aspect are insolvencies. Yes, insolvencies, let's talk about that. Because in the end, for us, insolvencies are very important when we are talking about the probability of a default of an export credit. I mean, we are always getting into the business when the damage is done, when insolvencies are there, when people cannot pay anymore. So where are we right now? Let's start on the left-hand side here with Denmark. And if you want to know this chart, so the chart shows just the pure number per month and the comparison between 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. So here the pink one is the current level. And as you see, for most countries, we have something like October, September data. And we are adding up from January to September, October, compared to what we have seen the last year. In terms of Denmark, we are at -6% right now compared to the last year. Denmark is, however, a very difficult, annoying country when it comes to insolvencies, because every second year there is a thing that the statistical office is going through all the books and says, okay, every company has to deliver yearly report for taxes, and if they don't do that, they are just cancelled out and declared insolvent. Is this a damage for the economy? No, because apparently this company was not working at all anymore. But it goes into the statistics, and that makes it always an up and down, up and down, up and down. To help you out here, I have a solution, but I will show it to you later on. So wait for it. First, let's go to Norway. Norway plus 11%. Ooh, there is an increase compared to the green line. But hey, if you are comparing it to 2020 and 2019, you see this increase can be seen as a normalization, and even not really a normalization, because you are at 2020 levels, which were already very low. So do not panic about that. 11% increase. It's actually good to have some insolvencies, because insolvencies are a little bit like a thunderstorm. They are cleaning out the air, and that's something that we see also with insolvencies. Sweden plus 1%. And I think, again, you see it, yes, a little bit higher than the green line here. Green line is, again, 2021. But, yeah, more like a real normalization. It's quite comparable to 2019 here. So we see here in Sweden that there were not so much support measures during the pandemic years, which is why the numbers are not differing so much between pre-pandemic and in pandemic. The reason is, of course, because there were not so harsh lockdown measures, so not so much need to support. And then, this is an outlier a little bit. Finland is right now at 8%. You see also here up and down, up and down. Yes, we were here at levels that were above the pre-pandemic level. But if you are looking at it, I would say still a very reasonable level. So nothing to be really worried about for now. So if we are adding it up, for the total number of insolvencies, I would not say that there is a wave here. Sorry, not to be seen, at least for now. But, I mean, you cannot compare the situation of a bakery with the one of a metal production plant. I think that's clear. So let's get back to business. Let's go into the different sectors, because, I mean, come on. Total economy is one thing, but we want to know what's going on in our single sectors. And that's what you see here for Sweden and Denmark. To give you some insights, we have here the numbers again, January to October, the ones that we already have, and compare them in the growth rate with the one of the last year. No? So not total year 2021, but January to October. We are not comparing Apple with peers, of course. And you see there are increases. There are increases a lot in automotive, furniture, energy, food, agriculture, retail. So yes, there are sectors that are very much affected. Now, this +1 looks not a biggie, but if you are asking automotive, yeah, there is something going on. For some sectors like automotive and furniture, I still have to say, please take these numbers a little bit with caution, because of course there are not so many companies in Sweden that are affected by or that are producing furniture and automotive parts. So if the numbers are low and there is an increase or decrease, the percentual change can be really big. One example, if you're looking, for example, at pharma, in most countries you have really low numbers of pharma, and if there is 1 insolvency last year and 2 this year, you already have an increase of 100%. No? So less numbers and high percentage change. Nevertheless, I think it gives you a feeling of how the situation is in different sectors for Sweden. In Denmark, here you definitely see the strong thing that we have this effect that in 2021, this was 1 year where they went through the statistic and scratched out numbers. So this is why please do not overestimate here the 2021 numbers. So these are, of course, total 2021 numbers compared to 2020. There were apparently a lot companies in finance and insurance who were not working anymore and were scratched out from the statistics. Nevertheless, I think retail, trade, construction, manufacturing, this is a story that we see everywhere. These are the sectors that are mostly affected by price increases, by lower consumption behavior when it comes to goods, not services. You remember, I was in Sweden, full-blown tourism, and actually I also went shopping. So I think your numbers should be better in Sweden. Retail sales, where are we? Unfortunately, yeah. So, I was shopping a lot, so probably without me, this would be higher. I'm very sure about that. I was not in Denmark. Maybe I should have been shopping more in Denmark too. But you see, these are the sectors who are mainly affected by higher price increases, by still going on problems in the supply chain, and in general, the situation, high gas prices and lower goods consumption, not services consumption. And don't worry, I have also the numbers for Norway and Finland. Norway, we only have them in a quarterly basis. So we have here Q1 to Q3 2020. We see almost everywhere increases. Here, interestingly, finance and insurance. So if you are in insurance, Coface colleagues, please explain that to me at one other time. But I think it's interesting that we have here manufacturing, interesting also hospitality. So normally right now hospitality is doing very, very well compared to others. Maybe also some problems from a lack of finding skilled workers that we see a lot. And Finland, yeah, a lot of ups and downs. Energy is mainly affected. Accommodation means hospitality and accommodation, wholesale retail trade. So you see there are most of the time similar companies sectors who are affected right now with higher increases. To sum them up, construction, energy, manufacturing, retail sales. These are the ones, and unfortunately, we are of course all in these sectors. One last slide for you, because I promised that to you. I said Denmark is really problematic with the ups and downs, and how should we really watch through it? Because if you are thinking about an insolvency, and I just showed you the numbers before, number of insolvency, for the statistics, it does not matter if it is the small construction company of your neighbor with 3 employees, or if it is H&M going insolvent. No? 2 times just 1 insolvency, but of course the damage for the economy is way more extreme with H&M compared to the construction company of your neighbor. And this is something that we wanted to be to show you, and one possibility to show it to you are statistics of full-time jobs that are affected by the insolvency of one company. So when companies in Denmark and Norway go insolvent, they have also to say how many employees they have. They are summing them up and put them to full-time jobs, so that maybe that you do not have the half-time to half-time or one full-time job. And there you can see what is the damage right now. You see that we are here for Denmark actually on a lower level. So 2019 was here the peak in the last years with 12.8 thousand jobs affected. 2020 was a bit lower, 2021 was really low, and right now, January to October, we are at 11.1 thousand. So yes, there is still some room, and we do not know if this is a linear approach or if maybe in November they are shooting up. We cannot know that, but it looks, at least for right now, that we are on a level that is comparable with the one of the last years. So not too big right now in the market. The difference here is, I think, even more remarkable. Norway had a very expensive year, 2020. So if the numbers of insolvencies, this is the same one that I showed before, were strongly decreasing. But there were more companies, less companies, but bigger ones that went insolvent. So the effect on the economy was in 2020 way more higher than in the years before. But since then it went down a lot. So if you're looking at 2021, it was one of the lowest numbers in the last years. And 2020 seems to be on the same track. Again, here only the data for Q1 to Q3. And I hope this will give you some better insight on how the situation is actually first in your sector and also for the overall economy when it comes to insolvency. That's it from my side, and I would get back to Mona. Mona, are there maybe any questions or comments? You are free to comment now, of course, also via the chat function.
Well, Christiane, I cannot see that there are any questions today, so we still have a few minutes left. So if anybody has questions, shoot. No, I think it was all clear, Christiane.
Okay. As Mona already said, this presentation will be forwarded to you anyhow in this way, and you see there are my contact details. So this was a lot of information, I'm very sure about that. And if you are in a quieter situation, maybe with a coffee, and see, okay, there are things that I still do not understand, please do not hesitate. Just write me an email or call me, and I'm very happy to explain everything to you in more detail and maybe find even more data for your single sector if there are big uncertainties. Thank you. Over you, Pekka. To you, Pekka.
Thank you, Christiane. Very, very interesting presentation. A lot of insights and good data as expected. If you could summarize on one thing, how would you conclude the situation as it stands today? Can you do one last summary?
Well, for me, it is that there are positive and negative news right now. One positive news is we are better right now in the current situation than we thought before. We thought it would be way more worse, and it showed that our economies here in the Nordics are way more resilient, and that's a very positive thing. The bad news is that this stressed situation will not be over in the next months. It will be coming up for the rest of the next year at least, and probably also 2024. And never underestimate Germany and its passion about energy. They will buy everywhere. So this means that even for your countries who are rich of energy, the prices will be high, unfortunately. I'm sorry to say that as a German, but that's the situation. So this means right now we are way more positive than we thought, but we are far from out of the woods.
Thank you. With those ending remarks, I want to thank everybody who took the time and participated to our today's call. And please give us feedback, questions, and I hope we will make this a reoccurring event going forward as well. Good. Thank you from our side. I wish everybody a very nice, pleasant, productive, and safe working day going forward.
Thank you, Pekka. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.